Welcome back to Traveling Dice. This is Jason. I have another top 10 list for you today. The top 10 monsters in Warhammer Fantasy 8th edition. Monsters are such an amazing part of Warhammer Fantasy. They're going to draw you in. You're walking past the window of the hobby shop. You're seeing that massive monster, right? You're going up to your opponent at a tournament, and the first thing your eye is going to catch is this big monster in their army. They're great centerpieces. They're fun. They're really enjoyable to paint and put together. They tend to be some of the most exciting things within the army. Not necessarily always the most effective, but just the most fun. When I think of Warhammer, oftentimes some of the first things I think about are these big monsters, which made me ponder, what do I think are the 10 best monsters in all of Warhammer Fantasy 8th edition? Before we get to the official list, I just want to mention an honorable mention, the Tree Man from the Wood Elves list. The Tree Man is a great monster, and he's a classic. I think of the Wood Elves, and instantly I start thinking about the Tree Man. He's also a great choice in Warhammer Fantasy. You don't see a lot of monsters with respectable armor saves, but the Tree Man is an exception. He's coming in at a 3+ armor save. Very good. He also has a 6-up ward save in 8, and he's stubborn. One of the problems with monsters in 8th edition is you had the potential of losing to a big unit because of the static combat res of the unit, even if you didn't take a ton of damage. Right, so a big unit is going to have 3 ranks, they're going to have a standard. It's possible that they charged you. So you're looking at a static combat res before anything's even fought of 4, sometimes 5 points of combat resolution. This is a lot to overcome for a monster, especially since monsters have the potential of really flubbing their attacks in 8th edition. You roll 1 on your Thunderstomp, for example, or you only have 5 attacks. So if you miss with 3 of them right out of the gate and then roll poorly on your 2 wound rolls, they really have the potential of missing. So looking at the Tree Man as being a monster with stubborn as well. So he's probably going to hang around. Leadership 9, stubborn. I really like this choice. Now getting to the official list, in the 10 spot, I have the War Hydra from the Dark Elves Army book. The War Hydra, he's awesome. Now, granted, from the 7th edition Dark Elf book to the 8th edition Dark Elf book, this guy got a huge nerf. All right, and frankly, he kind of needed it. I really actually like the new version way better. He's a lot more reasonable. Your opponents aren't going to be glaring at you as you field a couple of these guys. And they're really dirt cheap in my opinion. They're a special choice in the Dark Elf list. They're only 160 points. When a unit's only 160 points, I still feel like, I can throw it away if I need to. If I lose it, it's not a big deal. Which is good because this version of the War Hydra does have the potential of being killed fairly easily. So I think, for the points, he can give your opponent a bloody nose. He can wreak a little havoc. He's got a lot of attacks potentially. He's got 3 attacks plus his remaining wounds. He's naturally wounds 5, so if he's at full health, he has 8 attacks, which is a huge amount of attacks. They're strength 5, respectable. He's toughness 5, also respectable. He's got a natural scaly skin armor save of 4+. It's very good. He has an option of taking the flaming breath weapon, fiery breath, strength 4. It's an additional 20 points. So I can kind of go both ways on this option. If you want to keep him cheap, just at 160, you can throw him away, great. But flaming weapons are just so good in 8th edition. If you get the opportunity to roll up next to a unit and lay that template down, there's times when you could hit 20+ guys if they're going horde on you. Or just in combat, right? You need to swing that combat and you're going to use it in combat and it's going to do automatic 2d6 hits. You get hot on that, 2d6 strength 4 hits, flaming. If you're up against regen, it's going to knock it out for the other attacks that are coming from the Hydra. So it's hard to pass up the breath weapon, but I also do like keeping this guy cheap. He is very killable, right? It's just armor save 4+, toughness 5. There's a lot of stuff that's going to chop through that. He had the regen in 7th edition. In this edition, the Hydra, he regains wounds at the start of your turn. So if you can keep him alive, he has the potential of kind of regaining these wounds, which can frustrate your opponent. But, he's at the bottom of my list. I think he's a great option, and I love him. All right, jumping over to the 9 spot, the 9th best monster in all of Warhammer Fantasy 8th edition is the Varg from the Vampire Counts list. The Varg, in my opinion, has a lot in common with the War Hydra. He's dirt cheap, 175 points. He can be something that you lose and it's not a big deal, but he's actually a lot harder to kill than the Hydra. He has regeneration, and he's also got toughness 5. Toughness 5 regeneration. So as long as you're not getting in a spot where you're facing the flaming attacks, he can be hard to take down. His stat line is really respectable. Weapon skill 5, strength 5, toughness 5. He's got 5 attacks. Those attacks have hatred, so they're re-rolling on the first round of combat, and he's fast. He's maneuverable. He's movement 8, so he can be in your opponent's face round 2 very easily. This is a great choice. The only dig I have on this guy is that he only has 4 wounds. This is a real hindrance, right? He can get killed very, very quickly, especially if you find yourself up against the flaming attacks. You're really counting on the regen. He also can get killed very quickly if you're getting unlucky on your regen rolls. So my only knock, the 4 wounds, it's a tough pill to swallow, but overall, a great choice. All right, the Tomb Kings are getting some love in the 8th spot with the Necro Sphinx. He's an amazing choice. Toughness 8. Just want to let that soak in. Toughness 8. Most things in Warhammer are going to be wounding this guy in combat on a 6. You're not going to go up against a ton of strength 7 or higher. And he's got 5 wounds, so he's going to be really hard to kill. His weapon skill is 4, which is decent, and he's got 5 attacks, which is good. He also flies. I can't stress this enough. When a monster flies, it kind of changes the dynamic of how your opponent's going to have to deal with that monster. A flying monster and a non-flying monster are 2 different animals. You can't redirect a flying monster. You can't chaff it up. You can't predict where it's going to be. It's so much more maneuverable. Terrain doesn't matter as much. So the fact that he also flies, he comes with a 5-up armor save. Of his 5 attacks, one of the attacks is at strength 10 with heroic killing blow. Now, this isn't going to come up all that often, but you're going to talk to Tomb King players that have that story where this guy just killed a demon prince or something like that. So when it comes up, it's going to be amazing and it's going to make for a great story. Other than that, it's probably kind of gimmicky, but he is a great choice. Really hard to kill, very maneuverable, toughness 8, love him. All right, in the 7th spot, we have the Necro Sphinx's cousin, the Kimarian War Sphinx. I actually like this guy even better than the Necro Sphinx. All right, you're giving up the fly. It's a big concession, okay? This guy doesn't fly. He's movement 6. You're not going to be able to march, unfortunately, in the Tomb King's list, so he's a lot less maneuverable. However, I think his combat potential is so much greater than the Necro Sphinx. Everything that I said about the Necro Sphinx other than the fly is pretty much true for this guy. He's got a very similar stat line. Weapon skill 4, strength 5, toughness 8, 5 wounds. He does have 1 fewer attack, so 4 attacks. He's going to be really hard to kill. Toughness 8 is great. He's got the 5-up armor save just like the Necro Sphinx. But when you look at his combat potential, he has 4 Tomb Guard with him, so they have strength 4 attacks. They have spears, so it's going to be strength 5 on a charge. Those Tomb Guard also have killing blow. So your opponent's got to be a little bit concerned with his characters that are infantry. Now, the Kimarian War Sphinx has the option of trading all 4 of his attacks to make 1 Thunder Crush attack. If you hit with this attack, it's like hitting the unit with a stone thrower. So when you're looking at 8th edition and you have these big blocks of units, you're going to be hitting weapon skill 4. Some things you'll be hitting on 3s, right? Ogres, some orcs and goblins, for example. But even, higher weapon skill troops, you're still going to be hitting them half the time. This monster also has the option of taking a breath weapon. So you potentially, if you pay the extra 20 points for the breath weapon, which I think is an auto take for this guy in my opinion, you're potentially hitting them with a stone thrower in combat. Then you're using your breath weapon and another 2d6 strength 4 flaming attacks. And then you're going to thunderstomp. So just the potential for absolute carnage with this guy. Love it. All right, in the 6th spot, we have the Hellpit Abomination from the Skaven Army book. This guy, in my opinion, is really undercosted. He's only 235 points, and he's a bargain for what you're getting. He's got a low weapon skill 3. Strength 6, which is great. Toughness 5. He has 6 wounds, which is really great. A lot of monsters you're going to see only have 5 wounds, so getting that 6th wound is really nice. He has regen, and he's stubborn, so he's going to be hard to kill. even if he loses a combat, he's going to be hard to break. He has impact hits, D6, just a nice little bonus there. I don't actually know how often you're going to be able to charge with this guy. His movement is random, it's 3d6. I'm not crazy about random movement. I really appreciate troops that I kind of know what they're going to do. I know there's a random element to movement just in general with 8th edition. You know, you have random charge distances and things like this. But random move 3d6, you're only expecting him to move about 10 inches. It's hard to rely on that. He can really disappoint you in the movement phase, I think, a lot. But once he's in combat, this guy is a beast. You roll randomly to see what he does for his attacks. So on a d6 roll of 1 to 2, he feeds all models in base contact suffer a strength 6 hit. And then here's the cherry on top, no armor saves. And if you're fighting something that has multiple wounds, these wounds are doing D3 wounds. So this is really terrifying for Mournfang, for Skull Crushers, for things with high armor save and multiple wounds, Dimigriffs. Just absolutely devastating. On the D6 roll of 3 to 4, you have Flailing Fist attacks. This is just 3d6 attacks. 3d6, it's reasonable to expect that you're going to do 10 attacks. 10 attacks from a monster at strength 6. It's hard to really find that in anywhere else. And potentially you're doing way more. Now there is a random element to that. Maybe roll, a 1, 2, and a 3. And then it's really disappointing. But this guy's going to go off sometimes. And then on a d6 roll of 5 or 6, you're doing Avalanche of Flesh. Just sounds disgusting. But every model in base contact has to take an initiative test. If they fail it, they suffer a strength 6 hit. Okay, that's great. In addition to that, you do 2d6 automatic hits. Automatic hits. So that really helps mitigate this guy's weapon skill 3. And he's hard to kill, right? He's toughness 5 with regen. You're going to find some flaming attacks. So this guy will go down sometimes, but he's got the 6 wounds. Even when you kill him, he has a 1 in 6 chance of coming back. Now, that's just kind of gimmicky. You can't count on it. But again, players are going to have stories about how this guy came back 2 or 3 or 4 times during the course of a game and just wouldn't die. And he has the option of giving him magic attacks with the Warpstone spikes. I think I would probably include that, and just in case you're going up against the Ethereal. It's a nice option. You frequently don't see that with the monsters. He's a great choice in the 6th spot. Coming in at number 5, we have the Terror Geist from the Vampire Counts list. This guy is terrifying. The name says it all. He's a bargain, 225 points in the rare section. He's actually not a combat beast, right? His combat stats, he's only got 4 attacks. They're strength 5, which is respectable, but in a monster, you kind of like to see that strength 6 popping in there. He's also low weapon skill, right? So you're not really taking this guy for what he's going to do in combat. The reason you're taking this guy is he has this special rule, Death Shriek. You roll 2d6, you add his current wounds, which if he's at max health is 6, and every point by which you exceed the target's leadership, they take a wound with no armor saves. This is just devastating, and it's really an attack that threatens some of the things that are really hard to kill in Warhammer Fantasy 8th edition, right? Your Demon Princes, your Skull Crushers, your Mournfangs, your Dimigriffs, things that are really counting on that ward save. And even if you roll average, right, you expect to roll a 7 on 2d6. If you have the 6 wounds, you're going to get a total of 13. A lot of these things have low leadership. They might be away from the general. The Mournfang only have leadership 7, right? You're easily peeling off 2 Mournfang with this Scream attack. And yeah, he's not horrible in combat, right? He's not going to wreck your opponent's face, but the Scream attack can be used in combat. It's a ranged attack, but you can also use it in combat on your turn. Just really, really great. He's got an option that he can do 3d6 strength 2 hits when he's killed. I actually don't like this option a lot. I never was super fond of taking things of the insurance policies on your guys getting killed. He also has the option for poison attacks, but he's only got 4 attacks. I don't really think you get your value out of that. The Scream is where it's at with this guy. He's also a flyer, so he's very maneuverable. He's got a regen 6+. You can't really count on it. But you can heal him with the Vampire's Magic, so a great choice. In the 4 spot, we have the Frostheart Phoenix from the High Elves list. This guy is definitely a combat beast. His weapon skill 6. You rarely see that on monsters. Strength 6, toughness 6. He's got 5 wounds, very hard to kill. And he has a respectable 4 attacks. I wouldn't mind seeing the 5th attack on him. But he is very hard to kill. He's got a 5-up armor save. He also has a natural 5-up ward. He's a flyer, so he's super maneuverable. You get to decide where you want him to go. He's probably charging turn 2. And he's going to get a bonus most of the time from the Winds of Magic. So when you are on your turn and you roll the Winds of Magic, you're looking at that higher die and you're consulting a chart. So if the higher die is a 1, the highest die, your ward save is reduced to a 6+, but that's only going to happen if you roll Snake Eyes. If your highest die is a 2, Frostheart Phoenix is at -1 strength. Okay, this is bad, obviously. But if you roll 3, 4, 5, or 6, you're getting a bonus to the Frostheart. And this is going to occur most of the time. On the higher die being a 3, you're getting +1 initiative. Higher die being a 4, you're getting +1 attack. Okay, so you're getting that 5th attack on a 4. On a 5, you're getting +1 strength, bringing this guy up to strength 7. And then on 6, you're getting a 4-up ward instead of a 5-up ward. And you get this until your next turn. So this is going to be in combat, all the time. And generally speaking, you're going to be getting the bonuses. Every once in a while, you get unlucky and you'll get one of these results that are kind of biting you in the butt. In addition to all of that, he has the Blizzard Aura special rule. Enemy units that are in base contact with him, they always strike last, and they're at -1 strength. So I really think this guy actually synergizes with the elves very well, reducing the strength of attacks on units that he's in base contact with. Are going to affect if you have a shared mixed combat, right? So say he's in there and you also have a unit of Swordmasters. That unit is being reduced by their strength, which is helping the elves a lot because they have such a low toughness. So in addition to all of that, he synergizes with the army very well. In the 3 spot, we have a monster that I just absolutely hated fighting in Warhammer Fantasy 8th edition, which is the Chimera from the Warriors of Chaos. This guy is just brutal in combat. He has a huge number of attacks. So base attack 6, but he also gets an extra D3 attacks. So on average, you're expecting him to do 8 attacks. They're at a respectable weapon skill 4. They're at high strength of 6. He's got a respectable toughness of 5. The only saving grace on this guy is that he only has 4 wounds. All right, so he is killable, but he has regen, right? So you're really counting on some flaming attacks here. He's a flyer. He's got a 4-up armor save. So, even if you have the flaming attacks, if you're not punching through that armor, he could make those armor saves. And he's very maneuverable. So, yes, there are things that can kill this guy. A wizard that's on the Lore of Fire. Certainly, if you have flaming artillery, that's going to do the job. But you only have 1 turn to do it. And this guy's going to be in combat turn 2. Like every game I've ever seen him in, he's in combat turn 2. There's no reason to keep him back. So you have 1 round to kill him. Otherwise, you're stuck in combat with this just behemoth. He has a few options that are no-brainers, in my opinion. Giving him regen for 15 points, a bargain. Giving him a flaming breath attack for 30 points, I think is a no-brainer as well. You have the option of giving him poison attacks. Normally, I would kind of shy away from this, but he has so many attacks, I think it's worth doing at 15 points. So potentially 9 attacks. You're going to hit poison once or twice every round. He's just a really terrifying thing to see across the battlefield and something that you have to deal with immediately out of the gate. And then when you combine this with some of the other options in the army, that kind of have that same feel to it, like I have to deal with this immediately, I think it makes the Chimera even more powerful. He is a great choice. In the 2 spot, we have the Soul Grinder from the Demons of Chaos list. This guy can just take a horrendous amount of abuse. He's really, really hard to kill. He's toughness 7. He has 6 wounds, a 4-up armor save, an innate 5-up ward save because he's a demon, right? He can just soak up so many attacks from your opponent, and he's not even guaranteed to die by the end of the game. He can be sent in on fight whole units and do just fine with his Thunderstomp. He's only got 4 attacks, right? So it's not a shockingly impressive number of attacks. But you can give him the Mark of Nurgle in addition to all those other defensive abilities, right? So he's also going to be -1 to hit. Now, he does have a low weapon skill 3. But weapon skill 3, even your higher weapon skill troops are only going to be hitting him on 4s if you give him the Mark of Nurgle. And then that toughness 7. You're going to face a lot of strength 5 attacks, and those are going to need 6s to wound. And strength 5 attacks, he's going to have a 6-up armor, he's going to have a 5-up ward. And he also has a special rule called Caught by the Iron Claw. And when you use this rule, you can force one model in base contact with the Soul Grinder to make an initiative test. Now, if this test is failed, all the Soul Grinder's attacks against that model hit automatically. It's a little gimmicky. It's not something that you can count on. It's not something that's going to come up all the time. But when it does, hitting automatically with those 4 attacks, it just really swings the combat. And it allows you maybe to kill a unit champion on a Demogryph unit or a character that you happen to be in base contact with. This guy just soaks up punishment, soaks up attacks, soaks up your opponent's attention. I absolutely love this guy in the 2 spot. All right, that brings us to the best monster in all of Warhammer Fantasy 8th edition, which is the Kaidai Destroyer from the Chaos Dwarfs list. This guy is just a juggernaut. He's a behemoth. I never fought him, and honestly, I'm not sad about it. His stat line is shockingly impressive. He's movement 9, weapon skill 5, strength 7, toughness 6. He's got 6 wounds. Initiative 5. You don't see that on a lot of big monsters, right? They tend to be a little bit on the slower side. He's got 6 attacks, and he's leadership 8. In addition to the 6 attacks, he is frenzied, which can be a mixed bag. But instead of just regular frenzy, this frenzy is giving him additional D3 attacks. So on average, you're expecting 8 attacks from this guy at strength 7. If that wasn't enough, he's got some special rules to go along with that. Right? He's got Blazing Body, which at the start of close combat phase, every model in base contact with this guy takes a strength 4 hit. And there's going to be a lot of models in base contact with this guy because he's massive. He is on 100 mil by 150 mil base. So potentially you're talking about doing easily 5 to 7 strength 4 hits, maybe more if somebody's also flanking you. And these are all going to go towards combat res, right? So for orcs, this is going to be devastating. For things that, are elves, sword masters of Hoeth are just going to drop like flies just for standing next to this guy. And you haven't even gotten to his 8 attacks yet. He's hard to kill, right? He has 6 wounds, he's toughness 6, but he's also got a 4-up ward. So you can't even really bank on a cannonball shot or anything like that. You're just going to have to try to grind through him. He's got a 2-up ward save against flaming attacks, which is going to, negate a lot of the other stuff that's there to deal with the Chimera and things of that nature. He does have the Burning Bright special rule. So this is like his one drawback. And starting in turn 2 and every turn after that, at the beginning of the turn, you have to take a toughness test. If you fail that test, you take D3 wounds with no saves. Every once in a while, you're going to get unlucky with this and you're going to take a bunch of wounds just randomly and die. But most of the time, you're going to pass this save. He is toughness 6. You're only failing it on the roll of a 6. Yeah, you can have your toughness lowered by, the Lore of Shadow or something like that. But that's not going to happen very often. And you will have an opportunity to stop it. He has the unstable special rule. He's unbreakable, so he's not going to be running. He does have flaming attacks, which I think generally is a good thing, with the caveat of sometimes you'll see a mounted character that has the Dragonbane gem or the Dragon Helm, and they could tie this guy up, right? Because they're going to have a 2-up ward save against flaming themselves. So, but the sheer number of attacks, I think that this guy chews through that anyways. And yeah, you pay a premium for him. He's 325 points, but it's hard to think of a monster that I think is better than this guy. Let me know what you think. I will point out here at the end that I did deliberately leave off your monsters that are characters, things like the Demon Prince in the Warriors of Chaos book, the Greater Demons in the Demon book, the Great Unclean One, for example, the Treeman Ancient. I also left off character mounts. There are dragons that are better than these average monsters. So I was really focusing on the monsters in the special and rare slots of the army books. I think the character options really deserve a different conversation. Let me know what you think of this list. If you agree with it, if you think there was anything omitted, was your favorite monster left off, and you want to know why. If you like this episode, please like and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.